Everybody find their seats? You find the seats and comfortable? Thank you so much for coming tonight. So we're about to start the program for the evening. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Mayumi Hamanaka. I'm an artistic director at Color Art Institute. And everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. It's so wonderful to see everybody all together tonight in this room. And we're super honored to have amazing panelists and amazing audience. So thank you so much. We're super excited to have tonight's event, Not Apart, Together. It's a film screening and a film screening with live performance and a panel discussion. So the film screening and the music part is produced by the Mycos project. It's a live with the live original music score by Irene Sazer and Kate Stenberg. So then the evening includes a panel discussion featuring esteemed Ohlone leaders, Corinna Gould, Ruth Orta, Kanyon Sayers-Roods, and environmental biologist Ravinder Sehgal. The panel discussion will be moderated by writer and educator Anna Lappé. Anna is a best-selling author, advocate for sustainability and justice along the food chain, and founder for Food Systems Transformation. So a little bit about the Mycos project. It's a collective of multimedia artists and educators and scientists, founded by Irene and Kate. So the Mycos is a short term for mycorrhiza. It's the symbiotic association between plant roots and fungi. And so the name Mycos was adopted as a metaphor for how all life is dependent on all other life. And so their mission is to expand climate change awareness through the arts, ecological sciences, and indigenous practice. So the film, the one we're gonna watch tonight, it's Not Apart Together, is a collection of photo stills, video footages, interviews, and original art and original sound, and the music. It celebrates a diversity of voices and sharing information, cultural practice, and perspectives. So speaking and singing contributors include Kanyon and Ravinder. And so Kanyon focuses on bridging the gap between indigenous and contemporary value systems. Ravinder, whose research focuses on the ecology of diseases in birds. And other contributor is Cyril Cole, is a graduate student of ecological sciences in Cameroon. So the film includes video, photos, footage by Irene and Kate, along with other musicians also. So after this introductions, we're gonna have Kanyon and Ruth take the stage and do the land acknowledgement. And thank you so much for doing that and sharing that with us. We're super honored to have you here. And after that, we're gonna move on to the film screening with the live music. And after the film, we're gonna take the stage with the panelists, and we have a panel discussion and moderated by Anna. So there will be no intermissions. We're gonna move on to the next programs like right away. We might need a little bit of time to change the scenes, but feel free to kind of stand up and then go to the bathroom if you need to. It's in this hallway, and during the film, we're gonna close this hallway door, so then you can go around through our classroom from the back, closer to the entrance hallway. And I hope I don't miss anything. We encourage the audience to make donations to the Sogoreate Land Trust, also Costanoan Indian Research, and also our Partners for Sustainable Development. We made a QR codes and the signage at the front, so if you can, please contribute to their organizations. We, as a part of our effort to support indigenous culture and practice, we are also trying to do our part, and it's a small step, but we try to pay our land tax to the Sogoreate Land Trust also. So we're still learning a lot, but we are all part of this, and I'm so happy that we are all here tonight. So thank you. And so to Kanyon and Ruth.
I like my mask.
I love your mask.
I am, oh, wow. After the one I just spoke to, the Elks Lodge in Fremont this afternoon, actually it was 11:30, but when we got out of there, it was late. It didn't have very good sound. This is really good. My name is Ruth Orta. I am an elder from my family, and Corinna and I are cousins. Her grandmother was my first cousin, and I'm the second generation from the full-blooded native Avelina, which was my grandmother, who was the full-blooded native. My mom, who was born in 1902, her name was Trina, and her grandma used to come with another cousin all the way from Oakland to go see Aunt Trini. They called her Aunt Trini. And I remember her. I was just a tiny kid, but I'm now 88, so I'm an old lady. But I don't feel like any different than when I was 50. So here I am, welcoming everybody to this part of the world. And as everybody knows, this part of the world is our world. This is where Creator put our people here. All the way the whole of the United States, this was all the indigenous native people from Creator. So we like to have our spot in that history. And that was my mom's dream. And my mom was raised in Mission San Jose. My mom was born in 1902. She died in 1986. She was 84. She had 8 children and many, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. And she was proud of who she was. She fought her whole entire life to have her culture known, because she didn't know her culture. They weren't allowed to live their culture, pray their culture. They were forced to do organized religion. And that's hard for Native people because they have such a close contact with Mother Earth and Creator. So it was hard for my mom to do it because we were poor people. And then my mom was not recognized as a citizen of the United States until 1924. And she was born in 1902, so that meant she was 22 years old. So when they gave her the right to vote, she says, you could take your vote and shove it. I was here way before you, until you recognize me. That'll be a different story. So she was a very powerful little lady, 4'10", and very native looking. And people knew, that she wasn't a white person. She had Spanish in her. She was the first generation in our family to have non-native in her. Her father was a red-headed Spaniard from Costa Rica. Contrary to what all the family members that I have say that he came from Italy. I have his death certificate, and he was from Costa Rica, and he was a Spaniard. And Mom said he was a red-headed Spaniard. That's how she described him. She was 8 years old when he died in 1910, and her mother died in about 1904, 1905, somewhere in there. And but they didn't record her in the records where my grandfather was recorded. And then she had a little baby, a tiny tot, and he was a little boy, and he died. So they don't have him on the records either. So some of the church records have it, but otherwise. So anyway, Mom loved all people. She taught us to love all people and to respect Mother Earth, to have faith in Creator, and we called him God. And we called all the other ones in the Blessed Mother. We called them different things. But it wasn't, she didn't want it to belong to an organized religion. She wanted to have her own native way and her own native belief in God and earth and all that. So we were lucky to have her. And she stuck to her guns. She didn't let up at all. And so I'm here to carry on, to do what my mom wants us to do. And when I met Corinna, because I didn't know her as growing up, because we didn't have the means to be traveling all around to find our relatives. We didn't make any money. We were poor people, considered really poor people. And so, but it was fun. That's a good life, because you have different ways. Not everything is given to you. You have to work for it. So that's what it is. So these are the people that are here to tell you, welcome to our part of the world. Respect us and learn from them, from all of us, how we lived. And we're learning our language, relearning our language. Corinna's daughter, Deja, is teaching us the Chochenyo language. My mom never, ever heard her language. She spoke Spanish. And her mother, who was full-blooded, Mom was half, and she spoke Spanish also. They even had Spanish-sounding names. And but they kept their identity, and all Native people from the world were common sense brilliant, because if they weren't, we would not be here, because we wouldn't know what to do. God didn't put us here with the book to say this is what you do. You had to learn it. And they were brilliant, common sense people. They weren't stupid. They knew that you could have your animals for food, and also for use for blankets, or for helping you work and stuff like that. They knew the plants that you could eat. They knew the trees, which ones you could take their food from the trees, everything. They knew the water. The water was the main thing, because they didn't, like I tell everybody, because he said, the kids will ask, because I've talked to school children, did they have water? How did they get their water? I said, they didn't have water. They didn't even have bathrooms. They had little outhouses, but made the way they made them. We had outhouses. In my lifetime, we had outhouses. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Now we're going to listen to the music, right?
I'm going to help offer a song in a good way, and I think we will transition to hear live music and see this amazing work by these amazing beings.
Oh, good. So hello. I'm glad I got to talk, because now you know who I am and what I'm about.
Okay. So, our elders are timeless libraries of information. I highly encourage you to converse with your elders in your community. Always listen to these wisdom keepers, these culture bearers. It's so very important. So I'm going to actually exercise your vocal cords. Can I hear you all say Huchin? Huchin. Can I hear you say Chochenyo? Chochenyo. And now we're going to rein it into my territory in my language that I am reconnecting to. Ama Piritakawas. Ama Piritakawas. By saying these words, you're acknowledging the first words and the first language of this land. By acknowledging my contribution, it is the Mutsun language of saying people of this land. So Huchin, this is before it was known as Berkeley, before Albany, before Oakland. The language is Chichenyo. As Auntie mentioned, our cousin, our relative, Deja Gould, is revitalizing the language. Many of our community members are relearning and reconnecting because for so many years, Indigenous peoples, our actions have been deemed illegal. Intentional genocide against Indigenous peoples, intentional cultural erasure, and ongoing lateral violence, ongoing intergenerational trauma. And so through this, we are healing, through this, we are connecting, but by honoring truth and history, we are accounting for recognizing the beautiful history of these spaces and places in today's post-colonial settler environment. And my mother, Anne-Marie Sayers, and her mother, Irene Sayers, have always taught my family and our community that when song, ceremony, and dancing stops, so does the earth. I too believe that, and I know my mother, and Auntie invites me to spaces and encourages me to offer a song. I identify as Mutsun Ohlone. I'm a visitor here in this space. I do trace my ancestry to the Bay Area, a little further south in Mutsun Ohlone territory in Indian Canyon. And I identify as a California Indigenous Two-Spirit community member. And so by acknowledging my ancestors, I want to offer a grandmother song that has the origins of the Chumash language. And this song is to honor our grandmothers, their grandmothers, and in all Mother Earth. For without them and without her, we would not be here. We share this time and space together for a reason, so it's with that humility, that gratitude, that present-mindedness that I offer this song here in this space today. And I know we're used to clapping, I know we're used to snapping, but can I hear a good oh? In at least our community and some of the California Indigenous relatives, when our relatives come in and dance, when prayers are sung and prayers are shared, we just say, oh, because we are still here. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to offer a grandmother song, and we can shift and transition to operating through Western colonial time. And honoring our elders. So this is a grandmother's song. So. Moi moi o kawan, moi moi o ka, moi moi na ho, moi moi o ko, moi moi o ne ai o konale, moi moi ai o konale, moi moi o kawan, moi moi o ko. Moi moi na ho, moi moi o ko, moi moi o ne ai o konale, moi moi ai o konale, moi moi o kawan, moi moi o ko, moi moi na ho, moi moi o ko, moi moi o ne. Moi moi ai kunali, no son and oh oh oh. So welcome to Huchin, welcome to Chichenyo Ohlone territory, and our elders, our matriarchs are still here.
Thank you. That was so beautiful and so amazing. So we're gonna move on to the film screening and with the live music with Kate and Irene. So do you want to come out to the stage, and I'm gonna turn on the video. I think it's on.
have a little hummingbird song. Umunya, 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 ueha, ueha. Umunya, 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 ueha, ueha, hu. Umunya, 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 ueha, ueha. Umunya, 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 ueha, ueha, hu. As a California Indigenous artist, activist, edutainer, consultant, student of life, teacher, I voice the importance of honoring truth in history. It's painful to witness occurrences like Western science, Western history, validating that the written narrative is the only perspective. It dismisses indigenous pedagogies sustaining the world since time immemorial. Humans will always impact their environment. However, it's how we are brought up and how we have that sacred obligation to tend the land, to sustain our communities, and to not forget that our communities is not only other humans, but our relatives. History books will say Native American hunter-gatherer. It dismisses indigenous cultures and peoples as the first ecologists, the first hydrologists, the first doctors. It dismisses that we tend the land with fire. As I have learned from indigenous teachings and from indigenous people around the world, that the plants and the animals came first. They are the first people. Humans were given life, latest. We were given the sacred obligation and responsibility to tend the land. We are brought up with many cultures, many belief systems. Many indigenous cultures and pedagogies have taught us that we have a sacred obligation, a responsibility. The 4 R's: respect, responsibility, reciprocity, recognition. To recognize that you have this responsibility, that you must be reciprocal. My mother taught me a prayer in the Mutsun Ohlone language. Hide kanama si kampatian, hetel kanoso, sotel kanoso. In English it translates to earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Mishmin Tuhis, Kanrakat Kanyon, Coyote Woman, Sayers-Roods. I am Mutsun Ohlone. I come from Indian Canyon Nation. And I recognize how privileged I am to be raised on the land of my ancestors. I am blessed and privileged to be the daughter of a tribal chairwoman, Anne-Marie Sayers. And to be raised in Indian Canyon, I have been afforded many opportunities, of which the biggest life lesson I've ever learned is to honor truth in history. May we honor the past to shape the future.
Hi, my name is Ravinder Sehgal, and I'm a professor at San Francisco State University. My research focuses on deforestation and how it affects diseases in birds. I've been really fortunate to be able to travel to many places on this planet, and everywhere I go, people tell me how they've noticed how the environment has changed. For example, I was in the Amazon rainforest in Peru, and locals were telling me about how gold mining has poisoned their rivers. In Guyana, native Amerindians told me how there are few animals left in their forests. And in Alaska, the temperatures are warmer than ever before and the permafrost is melting. Most of my work has been in Africa, in Cameroon. There I work with local students to study how cutting down the rainforest has affected the birds, mosquitoes, and diseases such as malaria. We know that multinational companies are cutting down the rainforest to grow palm trees to make palm oil, which is found in so many products which you buy every day, like Nutella, Doritos, Top Ramen, Girl Scout cookies, and also lipsticks and shampoo. Tropical deforestation leads to a loss of biodiversity, new emerging diseases such as HIV, Ebola, and the coronavirus, and climate change. We see that following deforestation, we lose so many species of beautiful rainforest birds, and we find new dangerous human-biting mosquitoes like the ones that transmit the dengue and Zika viruses. It's critical that we are aware of what's happening to this planet. Nature has no voice. People in war zones can inform us of their suffering, but the rainforest doesn't have Facebook or Twitter. Be aware and remember that we're all connected and that all organisms have the right to live. Thanks very much.
Misty eyes, the mountains below. Keep careful watch over my brother's soul. Here is sky be filled with fire and smoke. Keep careful watch over during sun.
You can see a portion of the forest here where the trees have been cut down, and this one has been pushed by a bulldozer. This happens often when they fell the logs and the timberjack has to move into the forest to extract the timber, and so in so doing it has to clear a huge part of the forest for it to have access. How I feel about this, I feel like crying anyway. It's a sad day when you walk into the forest and you see such a scene. The bulldozers are going on. We can hear them not far from here. The bulldozers are chewing their way through the forest, and the chainsaws are going on at a very fast pace to tell you that it is very alarming. What we are seeing here is just the beginning of the whole story. In months to come, a lot of these forests would have been cleared completely for logging, for timber, and to convert these forests to monocrop plantation, that is palm plantation. And it's going on like this in a lot of parts in Cameroon. Tropical forests are disappearing at a very fast rate. Not only Cameroon, Africa, and the tropical forests of the world at large. So, well, hopefully this will mean something to somebody out there. That it's such, when you hear it from afar, you don't take it seriously. When you experience it firsthand, like we have all done, because previously, before coming here, we were, in the academic setting, we all hear about conservation, conserve the environment. The message was not driven home the way it should, until we step in here and then you walk. After walking through a beautiful forest and then you happen upon something like this, it's like straying into a nightmare. It's true, you can see it. It's not what you see in the background there is not some video thing they've done. It's actually real. You can see the tracks of bulldozers, you can see falling logs, you can see a lot of it has been just turned upside down like that. It's so terrible. So hopefully this will mean something to someone out there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Amazing music and amazing film. So we're going to change the scene here. We're going to bring out the chairs and we're going to dive into a panel discussion part. So let me just get the chairs for the panelists.
While there's setup going on, I want to thank our dear, dear friend Eric Pearson for doing the sound. If you don't know about Eric Pearson, he is a Berkeley treasure, if not a national treasure. He's a really beautiful musician. He plays with Evie Layden, the Crooked Jades, and look him up. Yes, we play together. We're very old friends. And I want to thank Jim Granato for videoing, archiving this amazing event. So thank you. And lastly, well, I guess there will be a thank you, but I do want to thank Mayumi and Kala because it's incredible. And she's worked so hard, and what an honor to be here. So.
members of my family. She's one of the 17 grandkids. Yeah.
One of the 17 grandkids of Auntie Ruth Orta. Hi, relative.
It's a little weaker. And she lives in San Francisco. Tap the bottom. Oh.
Is this on?
No.
Testing. Have it harder.
Is this working? Yes. Very loud. Hi, everyone. Such a wonderful evening. Ruth, Corinna, and Kanyon, Ravinder, all of you, it's so wonderful to be here. I don't know about all of you, but these evenings where we actually are together, I'm going to get emotional about it. It's just so few and far between these days. So just really special to be here. And I jotted down on my notepad, hopefully this will mean something to someone out there. So Not Apart Together, that's our evening's theme song for tonight. And really, as I said, just an honor to be here with incredible Ohlone leaders, Corinna Gould, Ruth Orta, Kanyon Sayers-Roods, as well as Ravinder Sehgal, who you saw in the film as well, professor in the Department of Biology at San Francisco State University, and of course, incredible, now we know more about the Mycos project, Irene Sazer and Kate Stenberg. And I'm Anna Lappé, and hearing your welcome to all of us, I really felt my grandmothers come into the room. So Grandma Jeanette, Grandma Ina, really here amongst us. And as Miami mentioned, I'm a writer, an activist, and my last book I wrote was about the intersections between the food system and the climate crisis. And so, Ravinder, hearing you speak and seeing your students in the film, talking about those intersections really touched close to home. I also work as a funder organizer, trying to inspire foundations and philanthropy to think about their history of extracting wealth and hoarding wealth, and think about how they can be a part of actually creating more abundance and thinking about that history of extraction. But most importantly, for this evening, I am a proud parent of kids who've had incredible experiences here at Kala. So when Mayumi asked me to moderate, I was like, how can I say no? And also, quite importantly, I'm a neighbor. My house is just a couple blocks away. So this feels really special to be here, if highly unusual still for me to be at an in-person event. Most of my moderation over the past several years has been through a Zoom screen. So hello, human beings in 3D form. So what we're going to do for the rest of our time together, and I promised Kala I'd get us all out on time because they have to clean the space for tomorrow, is we are going to be in conversation this evening. I have a couple questions for the folks you see up in front of you, but then we also have some time for questions from all of you to join us in that conversation. And when Kate and Irene talked to me about this evening and about what their hopes and ambitions were for the Mycos project, how they described it as a project that is fundamentally about giving space and time and voice to people to be able to share their own stories. And so in that spirit, they created this event where we all saw this incredible film that they created and heard their incredible music, but they also wanted to bring these people together who are here amongst us to have a conversation together. I would say now, having watched your film, I feel like you also give voice to the non-humans among us. The birds, I feel, played a starring role in that film. And so I feel like you gave voice to those birds as well. So I have a couple questions for each of the folks here. And then, like I said, definitely want to bring your voices in. So be thinking about questions. And I thought I would start with you, Corinna. I don't know how many of you might have heard her voice recently on the radio, but Alexis Madrigal, who's the new host of Forum on KQED, had Corinna on just couple days ago, it feels like, just really recently, and talking about the work that Corinna has really been leading so masterfully here in the in the Bay Area around looking at how we think about land, how we think about land back and rematriation. And I remember hearing you talk on KQED and having Alexis ask you about, what does rematriation mean? And can you talk about, it's a huge, huge topic, but if you can just bring us into the work around rematriation and land back movement and somebody's phone.
It's probably Ruth's phone.
Oh, it's probably Ruth's.
Yeah. Pay no attention to the little box that's ringing. That's fine. Good day, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould, and I am the tribal chair for the Confederated Villages of Lishan Nation, one of many nations that is in the East Bay. And I'm also the co-founder and co-director of the Segorite Land Trust. And the Segorite Land Trust started about, the Segorite Land Trust only started in about 2015. But the work in the Bay Area started many, many decades ago. And the work that we started doing in the Bay Area was around sacred site protection. And about 25 years ago, when Janella LaRose and I started working on sacred site protection, many people in the Bay Area didn't know what a shell mound was. It's not taught about in schools. It's not taught about in anywhere. And for most folks that lived here, didn't know what they were. And we started a walk in the Bay Area in 2005 to bring about recognition. And we actually walked our territories and other people's territories. We walked from Vallejo down to San Jose and up to San Francisco. And we stopped at many of the 425 shell mounds that used to ring the Bay Area. And shell mounds are our village sites and our burial places, and they're along the waterways. And if you grew up or live in the Bay Area now, you know that most of our creeks are culverted, and you don't see fresh water. And that along those freshwater creeks, we had villages and monuments that were older than the pyramids of Egypt. And in these monuments that we created that are now under parking lots and railroad tracks and bars and schools, lay our ancestors' remains. And nobody knew about that in the Bay Area. In fourth grade history, we're taught about in the past, like we didn't exist. And a lot of kids went to school in the Bay Area because fourth grade history is about California history. And you hear about Ohlone people who used to eat acorns and used to live in tule houses and used to have tule boats. And then in fifth grade, you learn about the gold rush, and you never hear about us again. So what is rematriation, which was the question that you asked, right? Rematriation is about coming back into balance and reciprocity with the lands that we live on. That throughout all of the colonization that happened, and waves of colonization in the Bay Area, much different than the other parts of the world, right? Different for them than the United States. We went through 3 consecutive colonizations: the Spanish mission period, the Mexican Rancho period, and the current occupation of the United States. And I say the current occupation because we never ceded our territories, our lands, to any of the governments that found themselves here. They never asked us what we wanted. We never gave them permission to be here. But here we are all together in this place. Rematriation offers us a way to come together from all walks of life to live in reciprocity with the land and the waters on which we are in. When we talk about rematriation, it's about giving us a way of having connection with that land. Until we started the Segorite Land Trust, we were homeless in our own homelands. We have an unbroken tie to these places. I grew up in Oakland. I raised my children here. My grandchildren live in Huchun and in Irgin, 2 of our territories here in the Bay Area. But we didn't have a place that we can go to pray without asking for permission from parks or private landowners. We didn't have access to our sacred sites that are older than the pyramids of Egypt. We didn't have access to gather our medicines and our foods without asking permission. Rematriation offers us a way of doing that in reciprocity with the land with all of you that now live here. It gives us the opportunity to bring us back into balance. I could talk loud, so I don't have a problem with that, but I'm using this mic today, and I've talked a lot today, so my voice is a little low. Rematriation gives us that balance. It offers us this thing. When Janella and I started talking about creating the Segurite Land Trust, it was about bringing that balance back. When I looked at land trusts, there was only a handful of native land trusts in the Bay Area, in the country, right? And I went to meet these folks. I had no idea what we were going to do, but we decided to use this land trust as a tool to bring native land back into native hands. And when we looked around, we saw also that native land trust, as well as many other land trusts, were run by men. And Janella and I had a conversation about what does that look like when you correlate what happens. What has happened when men have been in charge of land all over the world? What happened during colonization when they took away the sacred? They took away women's place as leaders in our tribes. And the same thing that happened to the land, the devastation and the raping of the land, happened to indigenous women. And so how do you bring that back into balance as women who are the first teachers, who are the ones that carry the medicine and the songs for those that are being born and those that are passing over, those that have the knowledges for how plants are used and the songs for the waters? And how do we bring our brothers and our uncles and our grandfathers and our grandsons along with us to remember their sacred responsibility? As we look at rematriation, it's a work that we all do that's led by Indigenous women's leadership. It's about bringing us all back into balance, because we as human beings are all facing climate disaster. And as we look at this place, it only has 200 years, about 200 years of history here in California. Everything you see built here is only about 200 years old. Very, very short amount of time. Very different than the other parts of the country. Only a very short time ago, we could drink fresh water out of every creek in the Bay Area. We could eat salmon out of those, and salt and steelhead trout. There was an abundance here in the Bay Area, and that's the dream of rematriation, to remember the abundance that was not only here before, but is still here. That we have an abundance of resources, and of our minds, of our spirits. We have an abundance that can bring us back in time so that our children's children's children have fresh water and good soil to grow food and medicines on and fresh air to breathe. If we remember to be good guests, our relationship with each other. And what we teach is that when our little people, our children, that we teach all, how do you be a good guest before there was COVID? When people used to go to each other's homes, and you'd go visit your grandmother, and how do you behave yourself? Or you're going to your best friend's house, how do you behave yourself? And we as adults all know the answers because we've taught our children that. You say thank you and please. You ask permission. You don't touch things that aren't yours. And then we go to adults and we forget that we are guests in someone else's home. And we don't follow those things, same things. If we all were good guests to each other, if we shared the abundance that we had, we wouldn't have the things that we see in the Bay Area right now. Thousands of people without roofs over their heads or foods in their bellies. When our ancestors were in this land before settlers, there was no concept of hunger or homelessness. The idea of private land ownership came from somewhere else. So rematriation is about balancing that, reminding each other how to be human beings. How do we come back to doing those same things that our ancestors all over the world have taught us? I'll stop there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Ruth, I'd love to bring your voice back into the room, and yes, I'm sure. Just hearing Corinna talking about how recent Segura Te Land Trust, 2015, and thinking about the conversation you already brought into the room about teaching language that you were describing in your family lineage, how your grandmother was raised speaking Spanish, and how bringing back indigenous languages. And I'm just wondering what you would like to share, Ruth, about what you're seeing in terms of the ways that you're working to connect with the community, connect with the kind of ecology we saw in the film, and just love you to add into the conversation.
That's why I don't like electronics. I'm not a computer person, and I'm not a texting person, a Facebook, none of that stuff. No. So that's who I am. What I think about it was when I see things happening like Kanyon, like my cousin Corinna, and that's the young generation to me, that are stepping forward and putting all their work, their hours, everything. And it makes this little old lady very, very proud, very happy, because that was my mom's dream, to have everybody know, how we lived, what we did, because they didn't. That was all taken away from them. But Mom said, you stick to your guns and you are who you are. So to have people like this today, it's an honor to be sitting here. I never thought I'd be sitting here and having some of my relatives speaking like what my mom wanted me and all my family to do. And it warms my heart really, really. And because we've never left who we are out of our daily life. We don't even acknowledge it, that we do it, because it's just natural. And that's who we are. Bev Ortiz is the one that told me that, because I told her, I don't even know nothing about, what it is. And she says, you have that in your blood, and your everyday way of living is like what you are. And I'm glad that the young ones, and I'm glad I brought as many offspring in my family to the world. It's large, and I wish everybody would have what I have today as an 88-year-old retired woman, that's better yet, that's retired, and I have all the support of every single one of my kids. And I acknowledge all of them who they are. So that makes, sometimes I don't get to see everybody because I know they work, and so, I have to not butt in. So, but I try to get around and let the kids know, and everybody says, what do you do at Christmas? I use the telephone and call them, or send a card or something. They send cards to me because they know I don't do the internet stuff. But that's what I feel about, and how I met Kanyon. I have to tell this because this goes back to the park, East Bay Regional Park District. When I started to do the Ohlone Gathering 28 years now ago, I met this woman because of my son. He went to the Indian Museum in Sacramento with his senior class from high school, and he met Bev on that trip. And he came home, and this is a senior male. They don't get excited about culture and stuff like that. So I know. So he come home and he said, Mom, you got to meet this woman from East Bay Regional Park District. Her name is Bev Ortiz. She knows everything about our people. She's met them through her work at the park. So we made an appointment, and we went over to Coyote Hills, and I met Bev, and that's when I started to do research and my culture and, doing things like that with other natives. And that's how I met her mom and all the other people from Carmel and all the cities along the coast. And I met Corinna at one of the Shell Mound runs that she was doing at Coyote Hills. Found out she was my cousin. We matched our family trees. I said, holy guys, I told you you were one of my relatives. But that's how it happened. Now, if we didn't do that and, got involved with all other people, then I wouldn't have met her. So I'm glad, but he knows what he's doing upstairs. And that's how I feel about it.
I love it. Great. Well, I'd love to bring Kanyon into the conversation as you're talking about her, Ruth. So Kanyon and I met for the first time just a couple weeks ago, actually, and so I was so excited to actually get to be together again. And we met on land that is part of this rematriation effort. It's land that the Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST. Yeah. Some of you may be familiar with MALT, the Marin Agricultural Land Trust. The peninsula has POST. And POST was given land, 200 acres of land, from a landowner near La Honda, near Half Moon Bay. And POST put out a request for proposals of they were going to keep 150 acres of it open space, but they were looking for who would want to take over 50 acres to turn it into a ecologically centered farm. And it's a long and complicated story of which I only know a tiny fraction. Long and complicated story ending up with there is a farm that is moving from POST into the hands of Native peoples, and it's already produced, if I remember correctly, 15,000 pounds of produce grown agroecologically without chemical pesticides, given for free to a clinic in the Tenderloin, working with impacted communities there. And we got to, maybe it wasn't your first time, it was my first time seeing this place together. And in the midst of getting to see this land, I got to meet Kanyon, got to hear about Kanyon's work, which is amazing, and there's so much you could talk about. And so I thought I would just give you the opportunity to share with us, what are you most excited about in the work that you're doing. Again, from having spent time, I know there's so much, but if you want to just pick one of the things that you really feel most excited about, that just makes you feel a buzz with energy in the work you're doing in this area.
Well, to honor my native name, Coyote Woman, I am excited about being an in-between, because I come from a tiny little nation, literally a family. A small family, my mother, my uncle, myself, living off the grid in Indian Canyon, where, well, both of them are retirement age and deserve to enjoy their elderhood, and I am stepping up and stepping in to tend the land, so to ensure that our nonprofit and our small community is sustained, as well as reaching out to the community to educate and honor truth and history. Because there are times that, let's say here in the Bay, we have this Bay bubble concept, and one person had asked me one time, what radicalized you? And I was just like, what is that? And then I finally was just like, you know what? When I was 5 years old and I was going to school, a little boy said, if you're Indian, you're dead. Denied my existence. And so with that, I hated that story that my mother would tell in front of college students and field trips every day of my life in front of people. I swear I was an introvert until about teenager, and then my mom started pushing me in front of people. And she encouraged me to sing the grandmother song when I was 15 and 16. She afforded me many opportunities, and I honor and acknowledge and recognize the privilege I have being raised on the land of my ancestors, where my ancestors' ancestors' ancestors have always been. And I recognize how blessed and that true privilege it is to be raised in a both traditional and intertribal environment where Indigenous protocol is always honored. The Indigenous peoples of the land have always been in charge. Nothing happens on our territory without our consent. And I recognize how lucky I am as an Indigenous person to have that. And my mother has opened up that land for all Indigenous people in need of land for ceremony. We have annual storytelling gatherings. We've also opened it up for educational outreach. So we have field trips. We have international Indigenous peoples and visitors. We have ceremonies. We have weddings. We have mourning ceremonies. We have sunrise ceremonies. We have vision quests. and we have storytelling gatherings, and we just had a fire mimicry workshop this past weekend, and it just charged me up because it's people wanting to tend the land. It's intertribal settlers and community members from around the world and locally who live here who want to come in a good way, and mainstream society hasn't afforded us much insight in culturally sensitive and culturally competent approaches. And as an Indigenous person who is recognizing how I've been informed by trauma and how I recognize that ongoing trauma, and how many of us, if we think about it, and you honor your elders, you honor your ancestors and your ancestors' ancestors, all of us here have Indigenous lineages from all of our ancestors. However, as my relative said, if you are not on the land of your ancestors' ancestors' ancestors, then you are a guest. So what does it mean to be a good guest, a good visitor, a good community member? And then with that, what does it mean to be a good ancestor in training? And so with that, I'm excited about the work that my tiny little LLC is doing, Kanyon Consulting, and those are with Ks, because my name is Kanyon with a K, and consulting, I may as well just have a riff off that. So KKLLC, and the work we're doing with Costanoan Indian Research, and then I'm part of so many boards, I can't even keep up with that. And they're all tiny grassroots, and we're trying to fundraise and find opportunity, but I just really love being an in-between. Because as I said, a tiny little family, I don't have a huge tribe. I do have huge family, and they are my cousins that are my neighbors, and we open the land up, and I want to ensure that my relatives have access to land for ceremony, and also that our relatives are able to come back and learn and relearn traditional ecological knowledge in privacy, in exclusive spaces for our Indigenous relatives to grow and come into and heal from trauma, as well as I have that calling of being an in-between and being somewhat of a liaison, ambassador, a communicator to settlers and intertribal community members to help convey healthy practices and guidelines. And I celebrate co-conspirators and collaborators and allies and advocates and co-creators to inspire me to share with me their experiences, because I don't know what it's like to not be on the land of my ancestors. I can say, rah, 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 I as an Indigenous person hope that people do this and that and the other. It's another thing for a non-Indigenous settler relative community member who's taking steps to relearn their own ancestry. Maybe they have ancestry in Ireland or in Scotland, and they're relearning the Gaelic language, or they're relearning their pagan ancestry and connecting to their earth-based spiritual practices. I'm inspired by that work that community members are doing to show up in community and to walk humbly and not just say, like, what do you like to be called, American Indian or Indigenous or Native Americans? It's like, how about we reframe that inquiry and say, may I ask how you identify? Wow. So cultural competency is what I'm excited about, and that has me involved in so many projects, from climate collaboratives to fire ecology, fire mimicry, to JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I do Indigenous Insight intensives and workshops, so, hire me. Shameless plug, and I'm an artist, I'm a vocalist, I'm a speaker, I sang with a symphony, so all of the fun stuff. So I love to have conversations, I love to build community and connect, and yeah, y'all inspire me just for being here, so thank you for joining us in Circle.
I don't know. Tap it? I don't know. I don't know about these mics. Thank you so much. And I love this term, fire mimicry. Yes. Never heard that before. I've heard of biomimicry. Some of you may have as well, but fire mimicry, I love that. So we have a few more minutes. So Ravinder, I'm going to come to you next. And then quickly, I have a quick question for the two musician filmmakers, and you can give us a short answer if you want. And then I want to bring all of you into the room. So Ravinder, in a way, I'm just like, I'm loving whatever you want to talk about, but also I have a question if you want to dive in, which was before you all got here, Ravinder and I were talking, and he was talking about the film, and that was one of your students that we saw in the film, right, Ravinder? And so I wondered, as a professor coming and thinking about the students who you've been able to reach in your teaching, if you want to talk about that part of your life and what it's been like to connect with young people and their interest in these issues, but also if you want to talk about anything else.
Absolutely. So, yes, students are the most important part of my work. There's Ko'o in that movie who was so eloquent. I'm going to be seeing him in a couple months in Congo. So we're working together again, studying how deforestation affects disease emergence and how that's affected by the cocoa that you're eating and your chocolate, and what kind of things are affecting the biodiversity. But what I wanted to ask you, how many people here are born between 1960s and 1970s? I'm just curious, how many people raise you? Look at that. So you are all from a time when there were half the number of people on this planet. So today is 8 billion people on this planet. Think about that. So those people in this room, when we were born, I was born in 1966. At that time, there were 3.5 billion people on this planet. It took until 1966 to reach 3.5 billion. And today there's 8. So in my lifetime, it's more than doubled. We've added 4.5 billion people in that short amount of time. So you were talking about when you were 200 years ago, there was so few people here in California. It was just empty. You were talking about how everything has been built since that time. But since just when I was born, can you imagine how many more people that is? And do you remember the time when there were bugs flying on your windshields when you would drive in the cars? And we've lost 3 billion birds in just the last 30 years. So this is what's happening. We have this huge number of people. So what I'm really emphasizing here is that we can't think of ourselves as this group and this group and this group. We have to think of ourselves as one group of people, humanity, and how the other animals, the other plants on this planet don't have a voice. We have a voice. You can talk about your cultures, right? But these birds and these whales and the trees and the fungi and the mycelia, they don't have any voice. And so we have to really recognize what these 8 billion people are doing, how that's contributing to climate change, how that's contributing to deforestation, how it's contributing to loss of indigenous cultures, and recognize that we have to think of ourselves as a species that's basically overrunning the planet. And what that's doing to the climate, what that's doing to all the other animals and plants and fungi and bacteria and viruses that we're losing like this, right? So I think that's what I want to really make it aware that today was 8 billion people. Hooray, that's amazing. 8 billion people today, November 15th, 2022. 8 billion people on this planet. But think about what that means for our planet. What does that mean for the individuals that are still trying to, like my friends in Cameroon, who are still trying to, have a life? It's extremely difficult there. There's no opportunities. It costs $100 to go to school, and they don't have that money. So I have an organization, the Partners for Sustainable Development, and that money goes directly to educating young people, helping the refugees in this war-torn country, and teaching people about the rainforest and how it's important to preserve that. Because my legacy is to work with students. I have a couple students here today, thank you for coming, who are the next generation, who are going to be the next generation of conservation leaders. And my students in Cameroon are especially important to me because they will be the ones who are going to lead their country in maintaining the forest and trying to preserve what we have, because it's going like this very, very quickly. So that's all I wanted to say, I think.
Thanks, Ravinder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. Well, Kate and Irene, I'd love to come to you next, and either of you can jump in or both, but thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful film, your incredible music. Thank you for bringing these incredible people together. I just would love to hear a few words from one or both of you about your ambition with this project, maybe what started it and what you were hoping to do with this work you're doing together.
For many, many years, I come from a family of nature lovers and kind of grew up camping, going across the country, visiting grandma and grandpa, and then coming back to California. And my parents just very much valued nature. They valued the native people of the land, so we were visiting, what would you call reservations along the way, and it was a very important part of my life growing up. And when Irene and I started talking about, God, I wish we could do something about what's going on. I'm playing concerts, but what else can we do? well, with our creativity, can we bring people together? Can we bring different voices together? Can we bring scientists, Native people to the public through our music somehow? And I talked to Irene, and this, was just kind of a sad conversation we were having all the time. This is terrible, what's going on? And what came out of that, I think, is this film, and it's sort of a feeling of what can we do? Well, I have images. I love taking, images, videos, and I love birds, and I know a scientist, and so it all sort of started coming together, and Irene had this contact with Kanyon, and it just kind of started to unfold. So,
I love you, Kanyon. And I'm so honored to be here with all of you. So honored. I'm so honored that the community really showed up. Like, that was the vision for tonight. So, yeah, I mean, most of us who are thinking, feeling human beings care about people, care about animals, care about the planet, care about if we have kids or we know kids and we want them to have dreams about their children, and it's serious. It's really, really serious. Sometimes when I think about doing this project, I think I've mentioned this before, it just feels like a little drop in the ocean, and it is just a little drop in the ocean, but what's the alternative? Right. So we have to do things. And maybe there are ripples that we can create that change lives. And one thing that Kate and I have talked about from the very beginning of this first film, we're planning on more, is to amplify voices that need to be heard. And that's you guys. That is you guys. And I've changed. Just thinking about language, I'm saying indigenous scientists and Western scientists too. It's been interesting just thinking about the language. I want to keep learning, but I also we can bring our art. That's what we do. That's where, we've been privileged. Kate and I have been privileged to have support as kids to get violin lessons. And our family, we came from caring families, which is really, really meaningful. My Jewish family were poor. They were escaping the Tsar, and we say thank you to the Tsar for chasing us out of Europe so that Hitler didn't get us. And that's why I'm here. There was something else I wanted to say, and yeah.
Well, if it comes to you, let us know.
Okay.
But let's bring in some ideas, questions from the audience. I will say, to your point about that feeling that I think a lot of us have around being like just a drop in the bucket. Sort of the image that comes to mind is that actually we don't really feel like we're a drop in the bucket. It's more like we feel like we're a drop in the Sahara, like our drop evaporates before it even touches the ground, because, if you picture a bucket in a rainy night, it actually fills up. And that part of our work is to actually realize that there is a bucket, and that you'll never know if you're that first drop or if you're the last drop that is that kind of tipping point.
And I
question.
remember,
Oh, yeah.
I remembered,
Sorry, yeah.
So just the last thing that I wanted to say, because I think about this a lot, is that I think the relationships, and I love, Kate came up with the title, Not Apart Together, which I love. I love, love, love. I feel the connection, how we care for our own bodies, how we respect and care for the bodies of others, how we care and respect for the planet. It's all related. And I found out about Anna's moderation listening to Rupa Maria and Raj Patel talking about their book Inflamed, and she's a doctor, and making that connection between inflammation in our body is inflammation in our, so that's a theme now.
That's great.
But
Yeah, and you too can hear that conversation. It's City Arts and Lectures podcast with Rupa, Maria, and Raj Patel about their book Inflamed.
I'm sorry, I have one more
yes,
thing.
but-
I'm so sorry. I know we're running out of time, and I just want to say this is the first year I did pay my Shumi tax. I knew about it. I tried, and I want to encourage. So, that's something I'm committed to. I am going to continue to do that, and I just wanted to say that to encourage you to think about paying the land tax to our Ohlone hosts. So,
Thank you for that. Great. So we have time for some questions from all of you. And I think there's a mic that will be circulated. Yeah, I think there's one.
I had the privilege a few years ago to experience a sweat at some friends of mine in Santa Cruz. On your land, indigenous sweat. On your land, Canyon. Do you offer that?
Indian Canyon has in excess of 10 sweat lodges, and some are intertribal, some are family, and some are open. So it would depend on your relationship to the land and to the community and to the lodge leader. So I'm not going to perfectly say yes, and I'm not going to perfectly say no. I recommend you come into contact with us and start that friendship, start that dynamic, because I'm not going to immediately vouch for everybody to be like, yeah, come all to a lodge. However, for those who are seeking and those who come to community and who are able to show up in community, that tends to be welcome in some of our intertribal lodges who do open their lodge to intertribal and intercommunal community. So some of them are very exclusive and private. They're family lodges, and they just hold it down for their family, and they conduct their lodge the way their family has always taught them. And then there have been intertribal that take inspiration from other territories. So not a solid yes, not a solid no. So come chat with us. On our website, on that flyer outside is Indian Canyon, but immediately, if you want to get a straight a hold of me, is canyonconsulting.com. Both of those are with K's. I moderate all of the social media handles. Actually, I do that for Coast and Indian Research, Indian Canyon, Canyon Consulting, Nakri, and Acorn Wiki, and I do a lot of social media marketing. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and on the website. So Canyon at Canyon Consulting is the fastest way to get those handles, and email is canyon at Canyon Consulting. But that contact information is there. I have mini zines that also have the website and encourage education and outreach. So we have a storytelling gathering that I am failing about advertising. December 10th in Indian Canyon. It is a storytelling gathering, and suggested donation, you are welcome to donate at the door. We don't turn anybody away. We encourage students. We encourage intertribal communities. This is more of a fundraiser for the bigger storytelling that transpires in the summertime. However, COVID interrupted and pandemic times interrupted for 2 years, and everybody said, when's storytelling? When's storytelling? I'm just like, you guys want it to happen? Then let's make it happen. Let's do it right in the chilly time of December, because y'all keep asking. I'm just like, you know what? Wintertime in many of our indigenous relations who are further east of us, there is a time of honoring. Stories are to be told when the snow hits the ground. Stories are to be shared in this time after harvest. Stories are to be shared to offer lessons and insight and guidance and connection to community. The storyteller, the community member who shares that is part of community. It's the first TV, it's the first radio, it's the first communication of way of learning and conveying stories and captivating the mind. One of our first storytelling gatherings had a storyteller who spoke their traditional language. No one knew it, but they told the story so much in a captivating fashion that people laughed at the times that they were supposed to laugh. They almost were like really sad and sorrowful because the storyteller was just right there. And then they did give a quick translation, which they're like, oh my gosh, I knew I was laughing at the right part. Oh my gosh, I felt it. I knew I was meant to be sad in that moment. And it was beautiful because it was one language of California. And there are in excess of 270 languages in California pre-contact. And many of those are dormant. However, they are not dead. Don't use that vernacular. don't engage in cultural erasure. So hopefully you can come to the storytelling. If not, there will be one in the summertime, and we're hoping to find grants. We're hoping to find event coordinators because I can't take it on all by myself. So I need help and fundraising opportunities. I welcome community. I ask for it out in there in the world. So yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great, and there, you've heard it mentioned a few times. There's materials. If on your way in you happen to miss them, when on your way out, you can gather them up as you go. So another question? Oh, the materials there. Zella's got them over there. Great. Another.
Supposed to be printed on 11 by 17, a bit more legible. I have copies, and I'll teach y'all how to make them if we want to wander around because we're cleaning up this area on time.
Great.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Another question.
Yeah, hi. My name is Neelam Patil, and I am a climate literacy elementary teacher here in Berkeley. And I just want to honor the work that all of you are doing and actually invite you all, especially the 3 indigenous tribal leaders, to attend. We're planting our very 4th schoolyard Miyawaki forest in December. Some of you may have heard about this, and it's a way to rematriate the land and give it back to nature in a school. And it's going to be right here in the center of Berkeley on MLK and Derby, 3,000 square foot schoolyard forest. So I'd love for you to come. And I just want to say I really, really resonate because I think that what we need to do right now, I want you to come and speak to my students because they need to hear your message.
Thanks. Neelam, did you say the date for that?
Oh, sorry, it's December the 8th.
December 8th.
And you're all invited. Everyone in the room is invited. It's a very positive talk about mycelium and soil healing, soil biology, biodiversity. It's creating biodiversity havens in urban centers, responding to urban degradation. It's all native plants, and they grow very fast. So it's just a very positive solution. I actually received an award from Time Magazine as Teacher of the Year last year for this work. I spearheaded the first 3 schoolyard forests in Miyawaki forests in Berkeley last year. So, and they were very successful, very high survival rate. So, very, very positive. And you're all invited to come plant a native sapling. And we need you. I want to be involved with. Want our school district to connect with you, and include you because we need that connection for our children.
Great, thank you.
Yep. The time is at 9 a.m. is the opening blessing ceremony until 6 p.m. on December the 8th.
Great, thank you so much. So we have time for one more question. But no pressure. Sometimes when you feel like it's the last question. No pressure.
I have a little bit of a history sort of. I have the honor of speaking with Ruth Orta about a little over 20 years ago when in Emeryville, the Bay Street development was, and they were working on that, and the shell mound that was there was being disrupted further, and we listened to your voice about the treatment of the sacred site, and I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I don't know if you're still connected to that particular story, just that it's an important part of this area's heritage, and we want to respect that.
I think that was the property, the PG&E property? Not that one? Because that would be Mona, my oldest daughter. I was with my daughter. My oldest daughter worked with some of the archaeologists on some of the sites. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was when? About 20 years ago? Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's when she was first starting with, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Corinna, is there, if I'm remembering right, is there a walk next week also? If you want to mention that.
Yeah, so we've been doing work around the Bay Street Mall. Some people call it the Dead Mall. It was the largest of the 425 shell mounds that ring the Bay Area. It was over 3 stories high and about 350 feet in diameter. It's right along the Temescal Creek and right where there was a lot. If you were here a long time ago, there was a lot of old buildings there and stuff, and then right around what I call the dot-com era, when all this tech money came into the Bay Area and people started outbidding each other for houses and apartments. Emeryville was very broke. They had a brownfield there, and it was before EPA laws. They were dumping arsenic and all kinds of poisons, and one of them was Sherwin-Williams along that way. And every time it would rain, all of this stuff would go into the Temescal Creek and out to the bay. One of the reasons we still cannot sustainably fish out of our bay is because of all of those toxins. We started when Emeryville was being built, the mall, by protesting out there. My son was about 4 years old. He's 26 now. We've been showing up on the day after Thanksgiving every year since then. And so this would be year 22, I believe, that we've been out there with people from all walks of life. This year, we stopped for 2 years because of COVID. This year, we're going to gather again. We will be walking this year. We're walking between 2 shell mounds, the West Berkeley shell mound, which is the oldest of all 425, to the Emeryville shell mound. It's a 3-mile walk, and people are welcome to join us. It starts at 10 a.m. at the West Berkeley shell mound, which is at 1900 4th Street. If our Berkeley residents here, we implore you to write to the City Council, thank them for all of their support in saving that, and please ask them to think outside of the box of how we can stop this development still from happening. That is a place that we have prayed, and it's a part of our cosmology stories. It's a part of who we are. It was the first place, the first village site that we had, fishing village, the very first place we buried our ancestors in shell mounds along the bay. It is connected to our creation story, and so I would really welcome your help. But if you'd like a short walk with us, we're going to leave at 10 a.m. We're going to gather at 10 a.m. We'll walk to the Emeryville Shell Mound on Shell Mound and Ohlone Street in Emeryville, where we have gathered with hundreds of people for 20 years, asking people that are shopping there on the day after, or the biggest day of shopping, to not shop there, to remember the ancestors that not only were pulled out of there, but those that still remain underneath those buildings, that is still a sacred site. It is still a prayer ceremonial place for us, and that we ask people from all walks of life to join us in that prayer, and asking people to hold up signs and to bring snacks and to enjoy community. And so what we've been doing that for 22 years, noon to 3 o'clock there. So if you don't want to walk, meet us there at noon or anywhere. So thank you.
And to tie on that, as well as a small little promo, a relative of mine, Greg Castro, and myself are fellows with the Exploratorium, and there is a new exhibit called Buried History, and I am a featured artist there, and I wrote a poem about shell mounds, and so that is featured part of the new exhibit at the Exploratorium in the observatory. So if you ever get a chance to go to the Exploratorium, if you don't want to go when there's kids, go at Thursday evening when it's the adult after dark, but go up to the observatory, because that community right there, the observatory is so welcoming to the indigenous peoples. They have a land acknowledgement, and they have ongoing communicative, consensual, reciprocal relationship building with the indigenous peoples of San Francisco, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone Peoples, the first peoples of Yalamu. And so yours truly is featured, a featured poet there in part of one of the exhibits. So you get to put some headphones on, you get to read along with it, and hear my voice. But yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that plug at the end there, Kanyon. So great, and thank you, Corinna, for sharing about how we can continue this conversation and continue not being apart. So thank you all so much for coming this evening. Really, it's such a pleasure to see your faces, and thanks to the Mycos Project for bringing us together, to Kala for having us, for Kala for creating such a beautiful community space. Thank you so much for that. to our incredible panelists. You all, panelists, it's even a weird word. I mean, to just you being you. Yeah. And you heard a lot of ideas tonight about ways that we can all engage. I think Kala has a kind of notes board of thoughts, a place where you can share some of your own ideas, coming away, absorbing the beauty, the song, the images. What's one thing that you want to do? One idea that has come to you this evening. Maybe it's going to the Exploratorium. Maybe it's joining us together on the walk at the Shell Mound. Whatever that is, maybe it's something else that just popped into your head. There'll be a place for you if you want to, if you feel inspired, to share some of those ideas on little pieces of paper on a big board back there. While we do love you all so much, Kala has told me to tell you that we are not lingering here that long because they do have to clean up for tomorrow. So again, incredible thanks to our great AV person here, Eric, I think. And thanks everyone again. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
And thanks to our moderator.